All right, we are recording. Okay. So, how are you guys both doing today?
Eh.
Kind of, yeah.
Could be better. Better.
Rainy Tuesday. I don't like the rain, and it's been going now for 3 days. Feels like
Ew.
6. I'm not into it. It's cold, and I don't like cold.
It is.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm totally with you there.
Yeah.
It's cold here too, and no rain. But I'm like, I personally am ready for the weekend already, and it's only Tuesday, so
Yeah.
that makes it fun. Um, so I know you guys know this, but for all intents and purposes, my name's Hannah. I will be the facilitator of the group today. Um, I don't know if you guys want to go around and introduce yourselves as well.
My name is Holly, and I'm a participant.
Yes, and I'm Lisa, also a participant.
Awesome. So I know you guys are feeling kind of blah. Is that just because of today, or can you give me like a highlight within like the past week of something good that has happened with you?
Well, I can start. Mine's kind of an interesting story as to how the good came about.
Yeah.
But I'm exhausted from yesterday. I had a procedure done. They were checking for cancer. And it was, it's in the woman organs area. So I had a pap smear done, and when they reviewed the findings with me, I was talking to the doctor about the endometriosis problem that I've had for like 10 years now. And I was telling her that because of the state of the government, the laws, and all of the stuff, that they'll only prescribe narcotics to like cancer patients, right? So my way of coping with the endometriosis has been blown out of the water, because I was trying to keep my ovaries until menopause age, or until it became such a problem that it would be an emergency type thing. Because the downfall of going into early menopause is that you get osteoporosis, you get early hair growth, you get there's like a ton of like negative drawbacks, especially at a young age. So I wanted to put off that option, and I figured, well, it's fine, I'll have the Band-Aid to cover up the really severe pain when it's that bad, and I'll be able to cope until then. Well, that option's been removed from the table now, and because there's some days where the endometriosis gets so severe I can't get out of bed for days. So I'm talking to the doctor about all of this, and she was telling me, like, we got a pap smear back that has like the abnormal cells, and she's trying to get me to focus on that. And the more I pushed away from that, like, no, I want to talk about the endometriosis issue, because now I want a solution. The more she's going, like, you don't understand the severity of the situation. And so she starts to like kind of instill fear and panic, where she's telling me, you have a rare form of the precancerous cells, and in that means that you've had it for so long that it's possible you already have cancer. We need to check for all of that. And this cancer is so rare, there's like not a, she's basically making this like a huge deal, like, you already got cancer, lady, so you better get your butt in gear. So from that appointment, we set up another appointment to do the biopsy and all of that other stuff. But the problem is that she had me so freaked out that I think I was just in panic mode for like a good 2 weeks, because I just had my grandmother die from cancer, the exact same cancer, and hers was the rare form that was aggressive. And, all I can think about is like, well, I'm going to die, like that's where my head was at. So to try to kind of maintain like my emotional stability and everything, I try to like push it away, kind of shelf it, because there's nothing you can do about it until the day of the, procedure. And I completely forget about the procedure. And when I remember about it, I managed to catch a ride and, handle it. But I was like, thank God I got a notification. Otherwise I'd have just missed it. And when I got to that day of the procedure, the doctor had asked me, what are we doing to you today? And I told him, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, like, I know that I'm here for, because they found precancerous cells and we're checking that and everything. And everything else, I don't really know. Like, what are you doing exactly? I don't know about any of that. And so he said, oh, okay, well, let me explain. And then he tells me that on a step ladder of severity, you've got HPV, abnormal cells down here on level 1, and on the top level you've got full-blown cancer and you're already in danger zone. And he said, for me, I was like on step 2, where step 2 is, we need to check into this because it could go that way, and we're going to biopsy certain things to be sure that you're not cancer, like. And I was like, oh wow, that's a heck of a lot better than what I was hearing. And so it kind of helped me relax a little.
Mm-hmm.
And then the doctor said that when he finished the procedure, like during the procedure, I had, my boyfriend with me, and he was very supportive and helpful, where, doing that kind of procedure is not only uncomfortable, you're worried, and there's just all these things, like. And equally for me, when I'm stuck in a procedure like that, it brings back memories from being raped, so it makes it like really hard to maintain understanding that you're not in that situation and you'll be okay. So that's one of the good things about it, is that he was so supportive and he helped keep my mind off of things, and it just made the procedure easier. And after the doctor was done with the procedure, he says, we didn't need to biopsy anything because none of what I'm seeing is cancer. It's just, the HPV, and it's like, that'll go away on its own. And I was like, oh my God, talk about epically good news.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's
congratulations.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad you got that weight lifted off of your shoulders, and thank you for sharing.
What about you?
Well, I will go ahead and let Lisa share.
Oh, it's so hard. Nothing I've been experiencing is nearly as dramatic and horrible as what you've been having to go through, Holly. So sorry that you've been dealing with that, and that's terrifying.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that you have something with you, because when you were talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope someone moved. Does she have family there or good friends? Because it's terrifying to get news like that, and then you have to try to listen to what's being said to you, but you've got so many other things going on. And
yeah,
I'm glad that you have a really good doctor who is able to communicate things more effectively to you, and that you got such good. I'm sorry, grandma died too. Like, that's really awful. I've had a lot of people in my family die of lung cancer, but they've been older.
Right.
So, yeah. Was she old, your grandmother?
Yeah, she was 86. So she was older. It was still hard to like lose her, because, and for me personally, I actually got the chance to say goodbye to her in real life. Like, it wasn't like a graveside goodbye. It was, I got to go see her. She's in Ohio. I got to go see her before she lost the ability to speak and think and all of that, because her cancer had progressed not just from woman organs, it was in her brain too. So she lost a lot of, functioning, and that was beyond valuable. And yeah, I didn't get to go to her funeral because I couldn't afford it, but losing her was rough, because it's one of those ideas where that person has been there since you were born, and it's been, like, you just imagine they're going to be there forever. And when the reality hits you that, like, no, death catches old people, like it's hard to, like. And I went through this period of time where I would think to myself, I could call my grandma and then remember all over again, like, how she's gone. And then I'd be sad, and it was like a emotional roller coaster for sure.
Yeah. The only thing I've been dealing with is moving into an apartment and being frustrated by, just, okay, I have this to do, but I need to do that. And I wish I could afford a couch because I'm still sitting on the floor
No,
to do
no.
everything. But I have an apartment, I keep telling myself. So
Yeah.
that's been frustrating. And this rain, I'm a desert girl. I don't like rain or snow. Don't like it.
Yeah, that's completely different, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, again, I do want to thank you both for sharing. As far as my week, it's been pretty boring. Just work. Within the last week, something good or something exciting that I've done. I had my nephews over the weekend. I have them a lot. My sister's not necessarily in the best state of mind at the time, so my parents have them, but I try to take the burden off of them a little bit. So I kept them over the weekend. We went to the pumpkin patch, got some pumpkins, carved them, did a little sleepover with like Halloween movies, popcorn. So I feel like life's so busy sometimes that I try to spend as much time as I can with family. And when I do, especially with the 10 and 11-year-old, it is an adventure because they are crazy. But,
Yep. I got a 16-year-old, so, and an 11-year-old, so I feel you there.
yeah, and I don't have them full time. I only have them sometimes. But even when I have them, like for that weekend, I'm like, okay, ready for you to go home.
Yeah.
But just a little bit of what we've all, or especially you two, were talking about, as far as like dealing with these kind of circumstances that can be a little stressful, on top of focusing on work, on top of focusing on going to school full time. I think it's going to play into our topic a little bit today of trying just to have everything laid out so that you're not overwhelming yourself at one time. So what I want to go ahead and start out with, especially because of the stories that we just kind of all discussed, is just kind of doing a little mindfulness exercise. The benefits of this, so it kind of clears out those distractions that whatever happened today or yesterday or whatever we're thinking about we're going to do once we finish this group, that just kind of needs to be cleared away. What we need to be focusing on is the here and now and on the group. So there's a couple different ways to do mindfulness exercises. I'm just going to do something pretty simple, just a nice little breathing one. So what I'm going to have you guys do is, and I'll do it with you, just everybody, sit up, close your eyes. I'm going to have everyone take deep breaths, breathe in on 1, out on 2. But what I want you to be doing during that time, actually focusing on your breathing, focus on the air going in and out. I want you to focus on how your stomach is moving forward as well. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of start. You can count to yourself.
Can I ask that we pause for just a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Oh. Sorry about that.
We're totally fine. All right. So what we're going to go ahead and do now is just do that mindfulness exercise, kind of clear ourselves out, and we will go from there. So,
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and start. Like I said, just go ahead and count to yourselves, and then we'll just regroup when we're finished.
I got to 10.
So during that time, did you focus actually on your breathing and the counting together?
It was more of a an attempt.
Yeah.
My mind tends to wander a lot. So it was like I get to like a random thought would appear and I focus.
Yeah. And that's totally fine. That's the big part of doing mindfulness exercises is even when you're in the middle of them, it happens where your mind still wanders off. During that time, when that happens, just acknowledge the thought and then bring it back to the focus. And same as when, if we're in the middle of this group and your mind starts to wander off, which I get it. We're busy. We have a million things going on, and our brains are going a million miles a minute of what all we can accomplish in 24 hours. And, and we're nonstop thinking. That's okay. Just acknowledge that and then be like, wait, this is what's in front of me right now. This is what I'm going to focus on. And then just bring it back. So before we get started on the actual topic of today, I do just want to review our rules really quick that we went over with one another last week. So those rules that we have decided between us three, the first one was to not invalidate anyone else's opinion. So there will be times, whether it's this group or a group in the future, that we don't necessarily see eye to eye on a topic. That doesn't mean that one person's thought is superior to another's or one person's opinion is better than another's. We're entitled to our opinion and we're allowed to have that, and it doesn't make us better than someone else.
Right.
Second one is just respecting each other's confidentiality. I know when we discussed that last week, we were like, well, we're all in different parts of the country, but even still, just having that respect that things that are talked about during this group, we really don't need to go outside of this group and discuss what was talked about. Another thing that we have is just the request to move a group session must be asked 24 hours in advance. Luckily, we didn't have to do that today. Responsible for so I'm the facilitator, so today I would be responsible for communicating any technological issues with the other group members. I didn't have any technological issues as of yet. Keeping my fingers crossed that stays that way.
Right.
And then the final thing we have is group members are responsible for respecting potential triggers that could affect other group members. So just kind of be mindful of what you're talking about, and understanding that there are delicate topics and being careful with how you approach them. And at any time, if anybody does feel triggered or feels overwhelmed or anything, feel free to speak up, talk about that, because I have no problem taking a break.
Okay.
Or, going so you can go get a glass of water. Sometimes when you're feeling those levels of stress, your body releases cortisol, and drinking a glass of water can help lower those levels. So, which will kind of help calm down that stress response. So, today's group topic is over stress management while being a student. This is a very important topic, especially for me, and I'm sure it is for you as well. One reason I find this topic so important is between working full-time, going to school full-time, helping out with my nephews, helping out with my parents in general. I actually was working 2 jobs for a while, and that was, that was really, really hard. In my head, I'm telling myself I can do this and I'll be fine. But at the same time, I had a lot of issues going on outside of work too. So trying to balance working, trying 2 jobs, trying to balance school, and trying to balance family issues. And both of my jobs had to deal with counseling for substance abuse. So then there's always the fact of taking home that secondary trauma that you hear every day. And then, the trauma from family issues. And so I almost did reach that breaking point where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Sat down, actually talked at my full-time job with one of my supervisors. I broke down. It was a hard day, but at the end of the day, I actually ended up leaving my part-time job. And the reasoning for that is just because the focus on that time, it was like, yeah, this is great making extra money, but at the same time, like, how is this benefiting my future? Because I'm bending over backwards trying to do too much, do more than I can handle. And I'm sure you both kind of have similar situations as to why it's so important to have that stress management, especially with being a full-time grad student. So why do you think this topic is so important for you?
I'm going to share like a little bit of personal information, and it's just because that's kind of what helps me explain what I'm trying to say. So the importance of it is, like, when I first started school, I was trying to escape my ex-husband because I don't know if you know what narcissistic personality disorder is.
Oh, my ex-husband has the same disorder.
Yeah, they're fun, huh? And that's what I was trying to get away from him. And because, example, right? I had a well-paying job working for the school district. I was a teacher, and from his perspective, I said stuff that made him feel bad or mad or upset. So it justified him turning around and calling my job and telling my job that I was a drug addict and a child abuser and this, that, and the other. And when he did that, I came back from vacation. He did it while I was on vacation. When I came back, my job was not only drug testing me, but, when the drug test results came back, clean, they said, you know what, we just don't want your kind of drama because all these bad things could happen to our school. So, I'm sorry, but we just can't keep you. He had a habit of, getting me fired. So, like, I was trying at the beginning of school, I was trying to manage paying all of my bills, keeping my kids fed and clothed, and at the same time doing all of my schoolwork. And, and then this ex-husband issue popped up 24/7, got me fired from my job, or continued to blow my phone up, where if I didn't turn off my phone, I would be up all night. And he, then did like the tax return. He kept my entire tax return because I deserved that. I made him mad, and he was paying all of my bills and this, that, and the other, and he really wasn't paying all of my bills. It's just his justification. And so he took my entire tax return, which was the money meant to bridge the gap between how I got fired and to get to another job. Yeah. So not only was I was broke, like, just not sure how we were gonna get money for food, because of what he did. And that was like a 2-month period going on like that. And then it was this other lady that I had allowed to stay at my house with her kid. She stole medication from me and sold it, as well as sold her medication, like other medications. And, when I told her that you need to leave because I don't want this in my life, yeah. She then tried to steal my car. She called my doctor's office and told them that I was overtaking my pills, and that's why I don't have any. When in reality, she stole all of my pills. That's why I didn't have any. So it was like all of these things, like situations that were terribly negative, popped up in my life right at the beginning of school. And if I didn't have that stress management, in my life, if I didn't have self-care, if I didn't, I don't think I would have made it through, that through college. I think I would have eventually just gave up and been like, man, it's too much, So stress management is so important because it helps you continue to cope with life when it's terrible or it's hard, or, and it helps you also organize your life in a way that you're not, living by the seat of your pants. You can actually be comfortable and thrive versus survive. Yeah. And then of course the self-care is part of it. And when you take time to process your own emotions, or just, I'm going to take a hot bath, or I'm going to, it gives you that ability to have some breaks in between each negative situation, like here's a positive thing that I can hold on to, and I got to unwind, you know what I mean? So that's why it's important for me anyway.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
I feel such a bond with you. I'm so sorry that your ex is so wicked and vicious. And it's really weird because, I have a podcast and I interview a lot of people who work for abuse survivors and advocate for better laws for patients and survivors. And I've met a lot of women who have left men like that. And one of the things they do is go after your career, because once they establish that you're a problem at work, and nobody wants to be involved in domestic violence issues, they just don't want it. Women are easy to target. Teachers are very easy to target because you're working with children.
Yeah.
And schools don't want any drama or bad press. And so I actually, I became friends with a woman that I met buying her furniture off Craigslist in Nevada. And she was a teacher, special needs teacher. Her husband set her up so that she got arrested. And so she lost her certificate immediately, and she never recovered, because once they take your money away, you don't have the money to keep fighting them in court. It makes you more vulnerable. It's actually one of their tactics, and it happens all around the country. It's like their lawyers know how to help them navigate. And there are actual books that they read, these guys. There are books for them. There's one, do you guys mind bad language? Like, some people get really offended.
I think that was in the
right. I think it's in the group guidelines, the ones that we signed.
Well, okay. Can I have permission to use a bad word? Because it's in the title of a book. And okay, thank you, ladies. It's called Screw the Bitch. That's the name of the actual book. You can buy it online, and So I had no idea how thoroughly misogynistic and property-centered family court is. It's based on English mercantile law. So when you leave an abusive man, you are literally his property escaping, and he is legally entitled to his children. And so it is really easy to get caught in the crossfire of a narcissist who wants to shame you for leaving him. And you must be punished, because how dare you question his authority or challenge his ego? And so you have earned it. And the system, because we're not protected as women, will help him do it. So I totally feel you. This class structure, this curriculum that I've been studying since last year has literally saved my life, because there have been things I don't want to process because they're so ugly, what he's done to my child and me and my career, and the fact that he could engage other people who are supposed to be objective to savage us. Girl, if I didn't have like these research articles and these things to study, and even though I get so stressed out sometimes when things are due, I sweat and I smell like onions. I know that's really gross, but like my entire body odor changes, and I have to shower a few times while I'm doing my papers.
Right.
Because I'm so anxious that I won't get that grade that I want, so that I can feel like I do understand this. I am understanding why I chose this guy, and why he can't help himself, and why these people are not protecting women like you and me. It's been awesome, but it is stressful because you don't want your grade to slide, because you feel like, well, at least I'm doing this well. Right? I mean, that's how
he wins.
It's like, I'm going to get that good grade. Otherwise, I'm not going to feel good about myself.
Yes. I've totally been with that one too. Like, I got a C in one class, and that's because a lot of bad things were happening all at the same time. And I was just like, I kicked myself. Like, I could have got an A, and it's just, this is terrible, and I'm not good enough. And it's like, slow your roll. It is a grade, and you still passed, and you could have done better, but remember what was on your plate. It's okay to not be perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important thing. Like you said, it's okay to not be perfect. And looking at everything that's on your plate and understanding how can I divide this plate to ensure that I'm addressing all of these issues, but at a way that I'm still taking care of myself in the meantime. And I'm glad that both of you have had school as a chance for you guys to be shown that you are capable of not only doing this on your own, but successfully doing it. Yeah. So definitely be proud of yourselves. But yeah, even that, no matter the situation, stress happens to everybody, and it can
Yeah.
be overwhelming, and it can definitely be something that either you can learn from it and be like, okay, so this is what happened the last time, trial and error, maybe I shouldn't use these tactics, or it can be something that almost consumes you.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
so with us talking about stress, stress is considered a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. So pretty much what we have been continuing to talk about, it is just something that if it's a continued issue that is causing us to feel tension in our lives or distress, or it's almost like too much is being asked of us, it can cause a state of mental discombobulation as well as physical adverse effects as well. And that's something that a lot of people don't take into consideration when they're saying I'm stressed out. They're like, I'm tired, I feel anxious, I kind of distance myself from everybody, I stay home alone, the first chance I get to like have a free minute, I just sleep all the time. They're
Right.
feeling depressed, their self-esteem feels lowered because, like you said, it's like, can I even do this on my own? So they have that lowered feeling of self-esteem. But there's also physical issues that it can lead to. Some of those issues are just aches and pains. And that's from, you could have, back pain because you're not sleeping as well due to the stress, sleeping in uncomfortable positions, that kind of thing. Stomach issues is another big one. Gastrointestinal issues is huge with that. Another one, just nervous activity. So feeling of anxiety. And then another one is it could lead to different kinds of chronic diseases. So a big one that I have heard, and there's actually been some research on it, is how stress is related to cancer, which which is pretty scary. I don't know if it's ever been like 100% proven, but there has been a lot of research on it that is just, it has shown the correlation between living high functioning stress and how it can relate to that.
Well, I got to imagine, like, I'm sorry, I'm processing what you're
Totally fine.
And I'm thinking, like, that kind of makes some legitimate sense because, when you're stressed, you release certain types of hormones, and an overload of those types of hormones can lead to cancer. It can also lead to, like, person smoking more often, or, because I mean, when I was going through all the stuff that I was talking about, like I went from 4 cigarettes a day to 2 packs a day. So, like I can see how that would, make sense. Like, it's not just your hormones, it's also the activities you would engage in because you're stressed.
Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I know that there's a definite link between childhood trauma and cancer. Like they're finding out, and diabetes, and of course, like, STDs and depression and stuff. But they're finding out more and more that, it's saying that my internet connection is unstable.
Yep.
Right. You're breaking up a little.
I thought I was in a better place this time.
It's been working great the entire time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't it funny though? Like when it's a video, like, I'm in poor reception. It's not just like, you're like, your video is you.
But yeah, like what you were saying, with childhood stress and trauma, like the ACEs, how it can lead to problems as an adult and throughout your life. Another reason is like what I talked about earlier, is that secondary trauma or even primary trauma or whatever you're experiencing, that release of cortisol in your body, which is like the chemical that's released that kind of relates to like the fight or flight. Thank you. I was like, eventually I'll get it right. But that it shouldn't be so heightened in your body all the time, and it can actually be damaging to you. Which those are things that happen during high levels of stress or during traumatic events, or even within our future careers of working with specific populations. Secondary trauma is a real thing, which can lead to that, which in turn leads to stress. And that's kind of where we fall into burnout. And burnout is another thing that could potentially happen if we're overloading ourselves right now with school and work and family and, trying to have a social life. I mean, there's so many things. Burnout is something that happens over a long period of time, and it's just to where you just kind of give up, or you just want to distance yourself from that whole issue, that you just kind of want to stay away from it because you relate, say with my career, hearing stuff over and over and over again from clients. If I'm not taking care of myself from that, then eventually it's going to be burnout, where I just kind of have that fatigue from the job and I don't want to do it anymore. The
Right.
same thing can happen with school. If you're not taking time to focus on yourself as well, you can reach that point where you just, you'll be 3 years in or whatever it may be, and then you're just, I'm done. And then it's kind of that, how is that beneficial? Because then you wasted 3 years, and there's always the opportunity to go back, but that's kind of the importance of having that stress management, is so you can go that 4 years without having that period of burnout where you just give up.
Yeah. Right.
So I don't know if you guys have ever like begun to experience burnout. One of the beneficial things about it is it is something that builds up over time. It doesn't happen in one day. So just kind of being aware of those stress factors and what you're going through, and finding ways to take care of yourself in the meantime, definitely helps to prevent that. So it is preventative. You just have to know how to take time for yourself and engage in that self-care.
Right. I think proper boundaries too, like, because I know one thing I'm totally guilty of is biting off more than I can chew. And, oh, sure, I'll help you, or I'll help this, or I'll, but before I know it, I'm like not only overextended on time, but financially too, and it's, for me, I've had to really learn like proper boundaries of, actually today I'm going to say no, like I'm not going to overextend myself.
Absolutely. And saying no is, the first few times you might feel real guilty about it, but at the end of the day, saying no to someone else is saying yes to yourself, and
Right.
taking that time for yourself, which is, again, you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you're not taking time for yourself, how can you extend yourself to help others?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So some of the things that they talk about, obviously one of the big things about stress management and helping to prevent burnout is having ways to cope with the stress that you're dealing with. So when we talk about coping, we're talking about activities or objects or whatever, a person, like a support person that you can utilize to protect yourself from stress or those unwanted feelings, or to change an unwanted situation. So I know in my career, especially when we talk about coping skills, I deal with substance abuse. So the main thing we talk about is coping skills to utilize to prevent return to substance use. And again, that can be an activity, that can be a hobby, that can be a breathing exercise, that can be a person to talk to. There's so many different things, but there's also coping skills to use for stress management, for conflict resolution, when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling depressed. There's so many different ways for you to use coping skills, which I feel like when I hear the word coping, my mind automatically goes to substance abuse because that's what I work with. But then, like,
Right.
reading about all of this, I'm like, oh yeah, coping skills. It's something that you should have those to deal with every unwanted situation or every unwanted feeling in your life, to help properly deal with those so that you're protecting yourself.
Yeah.
So as far as stress with going to school full time, being a student in general is stressful in itself. I remember elementary school, it seemed like a breeze if I can remember it that thoroughly. Middle school got a little bit tougher. High school, I just want to be done. You get into undergrad, and when I was in undergrad, it's like new college experience. You're feeling like you're on top of the world. You're on your own, doing your thing. But going back for my graduate degree, it's been a completely different experience because it's like I'm already doing what I want to do, kind of. I'm already working with the population I want to work with, but I also want to further my education. So it's like I'm not in those situations I was when I was in my high school or my undergrad, where I was working a part-time job, or and then going home and being with my parents or whatever it may be. It's I'm on my own. I'm paying my own bills. I'm trying to save money. I'm in the process of trying to buy a house. Working full time. Yeah, it's going great. Yeah, the market's terrible. But
Right.
just trying to balance all of that while trying to maintain really good grades, because in grad school it's also a lot different. If you don't get really good grades, you're kicked out of the program.
Right.
Which has shown to be difficult. And then there's also, on top of all of that, when do I have time to see friends?
Yes.
That's a big one. I feel like I'm to the point now where it's like when I have that day off and my friends are like, hey, let's go get lunch or let's go do this. I'm like, I don't even want to go out in public. I just, I want to go home. But that's a big thing that it talks about is alienation when you're feeling stressed out. When you have those high level of stress, you tend to stay home a lot more and keep to yourself. And then you just kind of deal with that exhaustion. So since you started this grad school program, how do you think that you kind of managed to balance all of that?
You want to talk first, Lisa?
Yeah, sure. I think, you know, what you're saying about isolating yourself, and I think that makes most sense for me. I think that's what I've done. I think it's part coping with all of the stress and the whole thing of like, just, okay, I don't want to sit and listen to your chatter about things that don't interest me for the next 3 hours. That's a commitment of my entire evening when I have other things I want to do. So it's easy just to say no to hanging out with other people.
Right.
Any sense? And it is unhealthy. Like, it's totally unhealthy to put yourself into situations where you're avoiding people because you want to get stuff done for either your professional life or your educational life. As long as you have those 3 hours, 4 hours that you can spare, you know what I mean? Like, realistically, Hannah, you're working all these jobs. Holly just moved. She has 2 kids. She has a psychotic ex-husband she's dealing with, you know,
Right.
like, got all these other stresses on your plate. So sometimes it doesn't feel like spending those hours with a friend who's going to talk to you about shoes, or the person she's mad at work that really isn't doing anything bad to her. You know, it's just
Right.
like, okay, yeah, that's annoying. Yeah, that's really, yeah, that's not that bad. Like, this feels very high school and I don't want to judge you. And I'd rather go back and log into my computer, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, and that's another big thing is when you're with somebody and, you know, you spend all day worrying about your own stress or going to work and hearing about other people's stress. And then you go and hang out with a friend and you're like, the last thing I want to do is hear about anybody else's problems. You know, so
Yeah.
it's like, I want my brain to be shut off for a little bit. So you alienate yourself.
And that's hard too, because I don't watch TV. I don't enjoy it. There's some things I do watch, but for the most part, I don't want to sit and watch a movie with a friend. I don't want to sit and get drunk with you. I
Right.
don't want to, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm almost freaking 50. I don't want to waste my time investing in a new dumb TV show that's pretty much a remake of another dumb TV show that's already happened. And so what do you talk with about people at this point? You know, like, I don't know, maybe that's too intimate for me to ask Holly. Like, I feel an affinity with you because it seems we have some similar life situations. Do you ever feel like you're talking to people and just like you can't vibe with what they're, yeah, okay, Christmas, he didn't get you the right present and you're really mad because his mom came and she burnt the pudding.
And you're like, wow, you know,
you're like,
crying
oh,
over.
exactly, boo-hoo. But you know it's important to your friend. You know that what she's experiencing is just as valid as your own grief and anxiety and pain. It's just, it's such a different reality.
Mm-hmm.
Right. No, that's exactly what I was gonna, say to you is like, for me, is that it's not a matter of like when my friends are complaining to me, they're telling me about their, the things that really affect them in their life. It's like I sit in the back of my head and I'm like, wow, that's really it? Like, you can't manage that, really? Like, and it's not a matter of judging them. It's just that because I have survived so much, it's hard for me to relate to where they're coming from. because, you know, that's still real to them, but to me it seems trivial.
Yeah, I'll be like, oh, I used to be that person. I
Yeah.
used to think about that. Yeah, that used to make me angry too. And now I'm like, they brought pudding over because you just
Yeah.
scraped the top off. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
How bad was
Right.
it? Was the whole family there? You know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and that is one thing that's difficult about, you know, you have to, for me, I almost like try to remind myself and keep in mind, like, you know, it doesn't matter what I've been through, it's real to them. And, you know, like, listen to them, you know, relate or not relate, but be on their same page, you know, like, wow, that seems like it really bothered you, or, you know,
yeah.
because again, it is real to them. And, you know, maybe they haven't been through what I've been through or what others have been through. And, but that's a blessing for them, you know,
Absolutely.
That
and
is
it's,
true.
but it does get hard to, like, where, you know, I have found that in the last 2 years since I, you know, separated from my ex, that I have found it hard to find meaning in any conversation with, like, people, with certain people. Like, I find more connection in, like, narcissistic recovery groups than I do with, like, my friends, my regular everyday friends I've known forever, because they they understand and relate on a level that most people don't get. And equally at the same time, they don't say things to me like, you know, well, what did you do to make him mad?
Right.
Or, you know, stuff like that, where it's like,
You couldn't have done that. That's too crazy.
yeah, exactly. You know, and
Are you sure you're not being dramatic?
right. And I got tired of hearing that perspective too from a lot of different people, where, you know, another reason I isolated was I'm just done listening to people talk at me like that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just, you know, be by myself.
Well, and that's a big thing, like what you were saying is when you are with your friends and you're like, you validate how they're feeling because their emotions are real, but you can't sympathize with their situation because you're like, why is that stressing you out? When to me,
Yeah.
that's so minor. But then when you're around somebody talking about something that you feel is very serious and dear to you, and they're just like, are you sure that's really what happened? You know, so they're invalidating how you're feeling,
Exactly.
which in turn makes you want to just kind of stay away.
Yeah.
And not talk to people about your problems, because for one, their responses will probably just make you more angry or frustrated.
Yeah.
Or for two, then you have that burnout in general, to where like you're like, your problems are not very considerable to me. They seem pretty minor, and you know, you want to say, are you really that mad about something that minor? So yeah, it is awesome that you have that support group to relate to, because like you said, their problems are a little more relatable to yours, and
Yeah.
their traumas are more relatable to yours. And I think that's a very important thing to have, for any situation that anybody goes through.
Well, and I think that was one thing that why it's so much more beneficial to you, is that there's definitely a part of narcissistic abuse that people don't understand unless they've been through it. It's, you spent a certain amount of time with this person, and during that time that person was using tactics like gaslighting to convince you that not only was your reality wrong, but you are crazy because you said no to the abuse, you reacted to the abuse, you know, like. And when you first get out of that type of relationship, you're still processing through, am I really crazy, did I really overreact it, because you've been, you know, conditioned to think that way. Did I make him, did I deserve it because I did something wrong to deserve it? Like, and when other people, like, you know, invalidate, and they you know, insist, like, are you sure that really happened, because, you know, he doesn't seem that kind of person, and
He's a nice guy.
yeah, he's a good guy, you know, it's what I've seen. And then it makes it harder for you to hold on to the reality that, yes, that happened. No, I didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm going to keep healing it. You know, when they say that, it makes you back to a place of, maybe I did deserve it. Maybe I did see it wrong. Maybe you know, so that's another aspect of it, where it's like, I'm definitely going to isolate from a certain set of people and not talk to them about certain things. And it's because they don't understand,
Well, it's hard too, because people think, I know that in my own experience, like, you don't want to see what you don't want to see until you have to see it. Like, it's right here. Okay, I have to see this now. But my ex tried to hit my lawyer with a row of grocery carts in a parking lot. And
they're special.
It took her like a few weeks to process that it happened. Like, she told me about it, and she told somebody else about it, another attorney. And then she was like, well, maybe I misunderstood. It's like, no, you had it happen to you, and now you're trying to discount it because it's so
out there,
vicious,
bizarre,
that you don't want to put your head around it, So it's hard to hang out with those people.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
You don't want to see,
then,
but we all have blind spots, so it's a whole catch-22.
Right. And in turn, it results to that alienation. But during that period of alienation, I mean, are you really taking time to benefit yourself, or are you just involving yourself even more with your work, or more with, family issues, or more with school, and building up on that stress? Which kind of leads to my next question. With you guys both being in school and dealing with all these outside issues as well, what is something that you currently use as a coping skill to deal with all of it?
I exercise.
A great one.
A lot. I used to I used to hike a lot in Nevada, and obviously there's probably places here to hike, but it's not going to be the same because it's Oklahoma. And I love it here. Like, I'm not dogging on Oklahoma, but I do miss the desert geography and the whole vibe of, I just like the air. I like everything about the desert, except for the heat, the triple digit stuff. It's not fun, but I'd still prefer that to snow.
Yeah, absolutely.
That being said, like, I really started hiking every day, like walking every morning, hiking every afternoon, sometimes mornings if I had the time for it. And like doing meditation. And I went vegan for about 3 years. I didn't eat any animal products at all, kind of just detoxed. And I like scripture. I like to read scripture. I like to meditate on scripture, which is weird probably for some people, but I find that all those things help me put things in perspective,
Yeah. Those are pretty good.
Yeah, those are good. Thank you.
Working so far.
Yeah.
I would like to bead. I'm interested in learning how to bead because I like crystals. That makes me very happy. I like crystal beading, but I don't know. I just haven't found the time or financial drive to go ahead and start collecting things and making that happen.
Right.
For me, on the, when I isolate, it depends on the day and the situation and the emotions that I'm going through, because like I have unhealthy coping skills and healthy coping skills. And sometimes I use my unhealthy coping skills and sometimes I use my healthy ones. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, when it comes to the unhealthy ones, I've had an overwhelming day. I can't control this anxiety. It's, all of these, it's basically overwhelming. So the unhealthy side of it would be, I'm going to smoke some weed to help me sleep, or I'm going to drink, a pint of Jack to help me sleep, or just so I don't have to feel anything right now. Like, I just want to be disconnected. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's, there's, and the other unhealthy ones are the more, I like racing. I like cars. I like, so getting on the freeway and driving as fast as I can. There's something about having to pay attention that well, and the smell and the speed and the, in and out of cars. Like it just makes me feel better. I don't know what they call that. It was like an adrenaline junkie or something like that. Because I also enjoy like bungee jumping, even though I'm afraid of heights. Like, so like there's like the list of unhealthy, but I've also learned, the healthy side of it, which is I'm going to journal about this until it feels better. And it's a prayer journal, like, so it's not that I'm just talking to a document, I'm talking to God, right? And it's, to me, that's more beneficial because of the fact that it's like, I don't feel like I'm alone. I don't feel like I'm, just struggling by myself and no one sees me. It's like God's hearing me and hearing what I'm going through. So like, I'm, in the journal, I tell God about all my feelings. I tell him about, like, even if I'm like, I hate this, I wish you would just, like, vengefully take it out on that guy. Like, I express like everything my heart's feeling at that moment, and I also add in, like, prayer requests and stuff like that. And the other aspect of the prayer journal is reading God's word, because I kid you not, I can pray like that in my prayer journal, pick up the Bible, and whatever I'm reading, like, it's almost as if it's answering like questions, or it's supportive because it relates to how I'm feeling, or, it's like it goes hand in hand. So it's one of those things where I say, I talk to God and God responds through the Bible. And that's one of my probably core healthy coping skills. The other ones are like the arts and crafts, or, going for a hike, because I like hiking too. And it's like for arts and crafts, it's I sometimes crochet, sometimes I sew, sometimes I paint and, draw. And then the other big one was the playing music.
Mhm.
Like, there's something about sitting down behind the piano or the violin and just playing what you're feeling. It relieves it. So that's another one of, like, that's kind of like all of my coping skills, like, can just be labeled as like arts and crafts.
No, those are all really good. And I really appreciate you sharing not only the positive ones, but the negative ones, because that is important to recognize those as well. Even me, I think I would like to say one of my favorite ones is reading. I love reading, but when you spend all week reading textbooks, like, the last thing you want to do is read a story. So it's easier said than done. But I try to do it. Lately, I've been really hooked on these true crime podcasts, and I
Oh,
will.
nice.
Oh, they're very addicting. But I'll get home and I will, like, just play it on my TV while I'm cleaning or whatever I'm doing, so that I can hear it. Uh, Another thing I really enjoy doing is finding new recipes and, like,
Oh,
cooking
yeah.
food.
Yeah, cookies.
Especially when it turns out well, that's really satisfying, because it doesn't always happen that way. And then when the weather permits, I do love hiking, or we're lucky to have a lot of, like, city and county parks here with a lot of trails. We
Yeah.
don't necessarily have, like, the elevation and stuff of hiking, but we have the woods, and I really like walking the trails when I can. That time's about coming to an end. So in the winter, I do, like, adult coloring books, that kind of thing. But they're
Oh,
also
those are fun.
those are yeah, they're very therapeutic. But there's also the negative ones, which Friday and I've had a long day and I'm like, I want to go get a drink, and a drink turns into way more than one. And
Mhm.
then I go home, and all day Saturday I feel like crap
Oh,
and
yeah.
can't get anything done, and I'm neglecting commitments that I made, because for some reason a hangover when I was 21 is completely different than a hangover at this age, and they take
Amen.
a long time to get over. But yeah, that's one. And every time I'm like, I'm not gonna do that anymore. I'm gonna be more positive. But it always finds a way to sneak back in, because at the
Yep.
time it feels good. Um,
Right.
but something else that I wanted to talk about is just, there was a survey done that kind of asked people, like, just a variety of people, what their common coping skills were. And what we have is about 58% of people said they use that replacement gratification, which would either be music or reading or engaging in some kind of hobby that's beneficial for them, which I think we all kind of talked about one that we have. 73% of people said that their coping skill is actually, sorry, focusing on the problem at hand and focusing on a solution for it, and rather than drifting away from it, they actually make that their main priority.
Right.
Personally, that's not something I do. When I'm stressed out, I'm more of one to be like, I want to be happy right now, and this thought or this situation is not attributing to my happiness. I'm going to go the opposite way. I'll come back to that after I feel better. Which is common. So I was actually surprised that almost 73% said that that's what they do. Now these numbers are high, but it's just like, that's how many people said they use these coping skills. So like the first one was like, out of the people surveyed, I think it was like 58% said that they do this, 72% that they said that they do the problem solving. 54% said they do the distancing, which is more of what I do, avoiding the problem. Sleeping is a really big one. I come home and I know that there is obviously the factor of getting a healthy amount of sleep. But then there's also the factor of sleeping too much, which can
Like
be,
12 hours.
yeah, which,
Yeah.
and sometimes your body just needs to rejuvenate. But when you're getting that time to yourself and that's the only thing that you're using, that can be a symptom of an underlying issue as well.
Like depression.
Yeah, absolutely. 38% of people said that they utilize their support system, which would either be family, which could be friends. You said you have an actual support group that you go to. That is awesome. Almost every professional place has like an EAP where you can utilize that. Schools, that's something, talk to your student counselor if you're feeling stressed out. I'm sure that there is some kind of service through the school that can help you with that.
I just didn't say like GCU, not to be too interrupting, but it's what you said reminded me of, GCU, the counselor that I've got. Like, I know they're definitely there for us, because like when I was going through all of the bad things I was going through, I call him on the phone and I would talk to him about all of it, and I would and he was not only helpful like resource wise, he was also helpful with just being there and supportive. So it's your school counselor. That one I really liked, because I remember like that's exactly what the school counselor was for me.
Yep. Yeah, I've used mine quite a few times, and you're right. Like, they actually take time out of their day to kind of know you personally, and that helps, because whether they can provide you the resources or not, just being an ear to listen, it's very helpful. And that's something you can get from family and friends, and even somebody who is not professional in that career. Just having somebody to vent to every once in a while and getting that feeling off your chest and knowing you're not alone, it is very helpful. Another one, 35% of people, this is considered like escaping the difficulty. So these were more of the negative coping skills. So like risky behaviors, alcohol use, substance abuse, sleeping too much, or seeking pleasure in food. Some people use food as a coping skill, and obviously depending on how you're utilizing it, it can be not healthy for you.
Because that coping skill goes both ways. It's not just overeating. Some people use undereating.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can definitely be detrimental to your health.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why having that beneficial diet, it is helpful for you. And then 30% of people said they use physical activity, which I know almost every day I'm like, I'm going to start this nice workout regimen, and I'm going to get off work and I'm going to go walk 4 miles. And then I get off work and I'm like, no, I'm not. But I always say I'm going to. So I try. And sometimes I actually do it, just not near as much as I would like to.
Right.
But whenever I do it, I feel great afterwards, which is awesome.
Right.
And then we have 19% of people, they adjust tension and emotion. They use relaxation, meditation, like you said, or the breathing exercises. So those are just like some of the common ones. I know coping skills can be objective. Not everybody is going to be able to cope with the same coping skill. Some people are into something that others think, well, this would stress me out more. So it's important to take that time reflecting on yourself and thinking what works for me, what
Right.
helps me. And I think it's awesome that you shared those positive and negative coping skills, because you need to be aware of everything that you're using to deal with stress, and knowing which ones are helpful for you and which ones aren't. Um, there are sometimes I get off work and I'm like, I would like a glass of wine. Do I think a glass of wine is going to be harmful for me? No. But there's also those times where it starts out as one glass of wine and then it ends with a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
That's where it's not helpful to me. So it's
Right.
having that balance and also having that self-restraint where you can indulge without feeling like you're causing yourself more harm.
Right.
Okay, sorry.
I'm seeing it's 4:41. We're still recording, right?
I think so.
Because I remember last week we were talking about like it only for an hour.
It is
But
still recording. I told Lisa when I set up the meeting, it said the duration, and it let me put it on 2 hours. So I'm gonna hope that that is what happens.
Okay.
It's saying it's still recording on my end. What about you, Holly?
Yep.
Yeah, it actually I saw it still recording.
Cool.
I was just gonna ask, I have to go to the restroom.
Yeah.
Did you want to take like a break for a minute?
Yeah.
Can we
So-
please take a break?
Yeah. So it is 7:41 right now. I would say we can do. You want to come back at like 7:50? Quick 10-minute break.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. What
Is
should
it?
we
I'm
do?
just I'm gonna leave mine recording.
No, me too. Yeah, because I don't want to pause it and then lose it. So I'm just
Exactly.
gonna recording. But yeah,
Okay.
I'm totally fine with that. And moving forward, I guess as long as our professor's okay with that, I don't see an issue with taking a break. So I guess we'll see what she says. But I think a break can be nice. I think we've talked about a lot of stuff, and kind of just taking a few minutes to process everything would be helpful.
Yeah,
Yep.
totally. Blah, blah, blah. Sorry for my bad English, but should we do like 10 extra minutes at the end of this session just to cover our 2-hour requirement, since we have to have, am I overthinking math?
We'll see what happens at the end. We'll see where I'm at.
Okay.
That's another thing. All right, I'll see you guys back in 8 minutes.
Okay, thanks.
You got it.
Are we back?
I am ready whenever Holly is back.
Almost.
Oh, yeah, back around the same time. That's so nice. Oh, I thought she was back. I heard her.
I heard her. Yeah, I'm having a carry-in at work tomorrow, so I made food tonight so that I can just take my crock pot in. I made stuffed jalapenos, and so I was like, they're in the crock pot, and I was like, I should go check on them because I baked them and then just put them in the crock pot on warm. Like, I hope they're still good in the morning. I'm sure people will eat them. I'm not too worried about
They'll eat them. Yeah, totally. That's the great stuff about work get-togethers and gatherings like that. Somebody will eat your food that you bring. Somebody will be hungry enough.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I feel like at my work, they try to have a carry-in for any kind of occasion. And then it's fun, but with our hours, I'm like, it's impossible for us to wake up in the morning and make
Yeah.
something before we go in because we have to go in so early. So we're always trying to figure out how we can make it the night before so that it still tastes good in the morning.
I was typing super fast and trying to finish up that text message.
Oh, you are totally fine. Okay, so we're all back, all at a little break. That felt good.
Yep.
So just kind of following up from where we were previously, just talking about those positive and negative coping skills. I think we kind of covered some of the damaging ones can be drinking or substance abuse in general.
Right.
A common one, especially with grad school or college in general, is stimulants. People feel like they have so much on their plate that they want to take Adderall or whatever it may be to try to stay awake and get more and more done.
Right.
Yep.
And then it results in having to crash, and that potentially could lead to more addictive properties.
For sure.
Another one, sleeping aspect, due to exhaustion. Sleeping is good for you, but oversleeping to the point where you still wake up and you haven't had any time really to focus on something that is a healthy release for you and that is enjoyable. And then you're right back in that cycle of now it's more stress again. The unhealthy eating habits or the distancing of alienating yourself from others. But along with the negatives, there's also those positive ones. We talked about like physical exercise, getting a healthy amount of sleep, doing meditation, which is very good. I would like to say that I try to do that, not as often as I should, but even just getting to work in the morning and taking a few minutes of silence is something that I find helpful. Or when I'm at work writing my case notes and I don't have any clients seeing me at that time, I try to play like meditation music or nature sounds tend to be something that I really like the sounds of rain or the sounds of waves or like rainforest sounds. Everyone at work makes fun of me, but I play that and I can bust out 20 notes in 2 hours compared to if I don't have that, I just sit there and would rather do literally anything else.
Right.
So,
I was going to say one thing I can relate to you on that was that I used to fix computers, cell phones, and all of that for a living. And I can tell you that there were times where if I had no music and I was just trying to get along with my busy day, my brain was like foggy and I couldn't identify how to troubleshoot but once I put on that like techno, like whatever about it put me in the zone of like knowing how to fix it, knowing what to do and how to troubleshoot it. And, you know, I could take care of like 20 phones in a, you know, in a 2-hour period versus where I got one phone that I'm struggling to figure out.
Right.
You know, like, so music, totally one of those things that like, you know, can help, you know?
Yeah. Music tends to do something to stimulate some part of your brain that works with focusing.
Yeah.
But some people need that complete silence, you know, and I guess, and that kind of relates back to doing whatever works for you specifically.
Yeah.
Um,
There was one thing I was going to add, not that I'm trying to like take over or anything. It
no,
just,
you're totally fine.
on the topic of the unhealthy coping skills, I think that there's a lot of like misunderstandings. It's from what I hear from other like clients that I've had and things like that, where they just kind of classify unhealthy coping skills as you're being a bad person. And it's like, or even a common one that I've heard is that unhealthy coping skills has no place or benefit. And I'm like, that's not exactly accurate either, because, you know, there's a reason you use it.
Yep.
Now, the difference between the healthy and unhealthy is that when you use an unhealthy coping skill, you are using a skill that benefits you in that very moment, but it will not benefit you any other time. Like, it'll make it worse later. So, you know, alcohol is a good one that for right now, I feel like an emotional wreck, like a train wreck, and I don't want to feel this. I'm going to take alcohol, I'm going to get drunk, and when I get drunk, I will no longer feel those emotions. And when you wake up the next morning, those emotions are still there. And on top of it, now you got a physical problem to go with it, and you still have to figure out how to cope.
Yep.
It just, unhealthy helps you cope for the moment, not really anywhere else. And
Absolutely.
and healthy ones are the ones where it doesn't necessarily benefit you right in the moment. You still have to suffer that pain. You still have to, you know, go through that pain. But at the end of the day, 10 years from now, because you've practiced that healthy coping skill, you now know what to do with those painful emotions, and it's better for you in the long run. It's just a lot harder to practice because it's not an instant gratification.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's a big one when I work with my clients, and we talk about substance use. People use substances, at least at first, because it feels good.
Right.
It allows them to either feel a good feeling or get rid of an unwanted feeling. But a big thing that I talk with them about is I never doubt that it doesn't feel good, because why else would you want to engage in something like that? But at
Yeah,
the end of
exactly.
the day, when you wake up the next day and that high is worn off, or that, you know, the drunk is worn off, is that problem still there? And what have you done in the past 12 to 24 hours to work towards achieving that goal?
And then the shame and guilt follows too, right?
Yep, absolutely. And then another part, yeah, the shame and guilt, or there's always the potential of when you're engaging in those risky or in those substance use behaviors, then you're more likely to engage in a risky behavior, such as you drank a bottle of wine and then you realized you wanted McDonald's, so you get in your car and you go drive there, or you call up that ex-boyfriend that you probably don't want to be talking to and go hang out with him, or
Right.
you put yourself at risk for something more severe to happen.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
that happens, how does that attribute to your level of stress? You know, you're already so stressed out, so you went and drank that bottle of wine, but now you still have that stress on top of an OWI charge.
Yeah, you made it worse by trying to cope instantly, you know, feeling better instantly.
Yeah, and that's like you said, in the moment it feels good, but how is it benefiting you in the long run? Or with substances, there's always a problem where you consistently turn to that substance to deal with stress, and then you develop those addictive behaviors, and then
Right.
it's like you're unable to function without continued use.
Yeah, like you're basically, that is controlling you versus, you know, you're managing it.
Yep, absolutely. And that's a big one I see. And I told you guys last time, I primarily deal with opioid use disorder.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so what starts out as something either, and there a big thing is I started it either because my doctor told me to take this, or I had physical pain, but then it turned to, oh well, I have this physical pain, but when I'm taking it, my emotional pain kind of drifts away as well.
Right.
So what results as something beneficial, what starts as something beneficial results in you are sick without it.
Addiction. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not so much as that is the most common thing I hear from people is I'm not using anymore because I enjoy it. I'm using to not be sick.
Correct. Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. There's always that risk along with those negative coping skills.
Yeah.
Which and like you said, it does not at all determine that person is not a good person.
Right.
But that's kind of the importance of having that understanding of what is benefiting me in the long term and helping, what coping skill can I use that's going to help me work towards my goals.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you right now, if I say I'm going to have some wine and then do my homework, almost never I do my homework.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Same way.
And
Like, I'm just gonna unwind with this one glass and it'll be okay. And then all of a sudden it's 3 glasses later and I'm like, screw homework.
where if I would have went, for an hour hike or something, I might have come home and take like maybe an hour nap afterwards, but I would have woken up with a clear head and I would have felt good and I would have focused on that. So yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
which I think having that, just understanding what can I do that's beneficial.
Yeah.
And so I know, like, we talked about things we can do for ourselves, but also having that support system, I feel like it is one of the most important things. And it's kind of a catch-22 because when you engage in those negative coping skills such as alienation and distancing yourself from others, who are you talking to about your stress?
That's important.
Yeah.
Because there's some people who will be like, let's drink about it. And there's other people who will be like, what do you really feel? Let's get to the skinny of it. And how can you do it better?
Right. Yeah. Which having not only support people, but positive support people.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think another important one is just understanding the importance of being able to schedule and set out a plan for the goals you want to achieve. Some might be short term, some might be long term. So say, your course, our courses every week, we're going to have 2 discussion posts, 3 replies, and this meeting. So what's probably not beneficial is waiting until Monday to start, because then it's like on Monday, and I'm guilty. I've done it too, where it's like that whole weekend, it's gone. But when you wait until Monday, then it's like at least Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're at least doing a reply,
Yeah.
and by
You
that time,
have to.
yeah, you have to, right. And then I've fallen in that trap too, where, oh, well, I can wait until the last minute to do what needs to be done. I heard a lot of people say that they're procrastinators because they work best under pressure. and for some
Maybe
people,
true.
yeah, some people it seems to work. But I know if I space everything out appropriately, I'm not as stressed, those final 3 days of the course week.
Yeah.
Whereas, like right now, I'm actually taking 2 courses, and I just started it with this one and another one. And I've started, I think I've been so focused on scheduling how I'm going to do my assignments because I'm so nervous about doing 2 classes at once, that I've actually been more caught up this time than I was in any of my previous classes. I haven't had to do a single assignment on a Wednesday yet.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah,
feeling.
that's so good. Good on you.
Yeah, it's working out really well. So what I do is I look ahead, like I glance ahead of my week and I see what I have to do, and it's pretty much the same week by week. But I also look at my schedule outside of school, and I'm like, what do I have to do outside of here?
Right.
And then I plug in, little parts. Like maybe this day I'll just do one discussion post. Maybe instead of Thursday, the first day of the week, being like, oh, it's the first day, it doesn't matter. Maybe getting on here and doing one post and sometimes you can't do the reply because nobody's wrote anything yet. But typically the professor will have something written there, and you can at least plug in a reply really quick.
Right.
And that's on the first day, where typically, I would be like, well, it's the first day, it doesn't matter. But starting out and doing small assignments throughout the week rather than trying to overwhelm yourself last minute, that kind of also leads to that feeling of stress, because then it's like you get everything done the last day, and then bam, next day, the next week starts. And then you're just like,
Yeah.
Right.
You're not budgeting in your days off. Yeah, I've fallen prey to that a lot, where, I get overwhelmed by my outside life, that my schoolwork is getting to the place where I'm starting Monday, and now I've got like no time. And I did try to work that out, where the same as you, where the very beginning Thursday is where I read, because I'm dyslexic, so reading and comprehension is hard for me. So I take my time on that, and then I move on to Friday, let's try to do the discussion board, so I'm not just trying to Google search the answer, or, even search through the book where the answer might be. And, because I found when I switched, that when I read the material before I do the discussion board, it takes away so much more stress, because I can actually find the answer because I've already read it.
Yeah.
And whereas before, like, it was being completely overwhelmed and stressed out, because no matter what I typed into the search terms, it wasn't bringing up the answer I needed. So it was like, reading the book's a lot better, like, and taking it just small chunk at a time, like, helped me balance out, like, life, and not be so overwhelmed and stressed out too.
Absolutely.
And it also helps with this, because one thing, like I said, from the start of school, is that I've had situation after situation pop up, and then that would make me late on classwork because it got in the way. So now I'm prepared for that situation if it should arise.
That's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like with everything we're balancing in our lives outside of school, there is always the potential of an unforeseen circumstance happening. And when you have that, even when you have a plan written out, you might have to alter your plan a little bit, but you already have everything spaced out well enough where it's like, hey, this happened on Monday, and I had it planned to write a reply, but I can't. So that's okay, because I have so much done already that I can move that reply to Tuesday or whatever. Yeah, that's definitely a huge thing. Taking into account things that you wouldn't plan for, and having that time set aside for unplanned events. Another big one, especially with us being online students, is waiting until the last day, and then you find out that LoudCloud is having a shutdown.
Oh yeah, I've ran into that.
And that's always a fun one, because that's not what you're accounting for. But then that's happened to me, where I've decided to wait until Wednesday, and then I go to do my work, and it takes me so long to figure out how to get into the system, because I'm trying like 8 different paths to get in there, or they're not working, or or one time my internet just totally went out, and I called the company and they said they couldn't be here for 2 days.
Yeah.
So then I had to scramble, like, okay, now I need to leave my house to go somewhere to work on homework, when I'm, I had my huge chunk of time last minute set aside to do everything at home, but now I have to alter my plan. Yeah. So that is definitely a really big one, why it's important to kind of schedule those things out and take your time. You also, when you wait last minute over and over and over again, you're more likely to have that high level of stress related to burnout.
Yeah, right.
And then once that burnout happens, it's hard to cope with that and to get back to a place of almost sanity, to be like, okay, now I'm at a good place. Because often with that, you need a significant period of time away to rejuvenate.
Yeah.
With our schedule, that's not always possible.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually what I was going to point. It is I remember actually getting to a place of feeling the burnout,
Mhm.
right? So I don't know if I was necessarily burnt out because I could still continue forward, but I was definitely feeling it because, you know, I had so many situations and I was equally feeling my own set of depression and, you know, anxiety and panic. And, you know, because I moved to this place to get away from my ex and to stop this cycle of ugliness from happening. And, but I'm still, you know, if he finds me, is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? You know, like there was all these, it was the equal amount of like the depression and the anxiety. And then listening to his, you know, emails, like he literally said in one email to me that I was going to fail at school. I was going to fail at my life and I needed him. And I, you know, because I wasn't willing to keep him, you know, my life was going to be completely in disarray and, you know, school was going to be worthless and I was going to be the worst counselor. Like this was like a 9-page, you know, email of just how terrible I am and how much I need him. And when I'm reading stuff like that, it's, I know myself, but the emotions that followed felt like, you know, what he was saying was valid.
Yeah.
So with all of those things going on, it's like I felt burnt out. But and then it became the struggle was I can't hardly get up to want to do my work. To, you know, it was like I was like I just wanted to give up because I was so tired of trying that, you know, I'm like I don't even want to try. So there was like literally one class where it was like I was turning in assignments late and, you know, they were like half effort and, you know, because I struggled to even get motivated to get out of bed, you know.
Right.
And so it's like you're 100% correct when you say like it's not only hard when you get to burnout to find your way out of it. It's, you know, if you don't take a significant amount of time to figure it out and, you know, relax basically,
Yeah.
it's that much harder.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It is hard to get back to where you are. And that kind of, this is a little bit off topic, but like what you had said is even when you have confidence in yourself that you can achieve these goals, when you hear it from somebody else, which I'm not crediting anything he said, that is terrible. And I'm very sorry you had to go through that. Because like Lisa had mentioned earlier, it is a power control thing
Yeah.
because he wants to cling on to that feeling where you feel dependent on him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, nobody wants to hear from another person how terrible they're doing. And
Yeah.
I try to sit there and say other people's opinions don't faze me, and I'm not motivated by other people's thoughts. But at the end of the day, it's like if your actions and your strengths and your ambition isn't recognized even by one person and they point it out to you, it is hard because then that thought is still there in the back of your head like, well, are they right?
Right.
Well,
That creeps in.
it's hard too with people with NPD who are bullying you. That's one of their tactics, is to keep you in your place because you can't succeed without him.
Right.
So if you succeed without him, that again makes him more worthless. And as you know, they're motivated by shame.
Right.
So I'm really sorry that that happened to you because I know what that's like. And it's hard to get out of bed. And it's hard because you know on an intellectual level that this isn't real,
Mhm.
but you still have all that baggage of being human
Mhm.
and that you trusted somebody like this. And I don't know if he's the father of your kids, but if you made children with this person, then it becomes this whole thing of like, well, I must be more messed up than I realized because I needed him because we had kids and I chose him. And you have
Right.
to drink a can of screw that guy and get out of bed because
Right.
it's playbook. It's not even about you. It's just easy, especially when you are in school and trying to raise kids and better yourself. We already have so many fears and anxieties. And for him to prey upon you at that time just shows his sickness, not yours.
Right.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
But I'm sorry that you had to go through that. I get it.
Yeah, I am
My
very
ex call me, yeah, I get it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Honestly, validating stuff like that has helped a lot along the way.
Because it's not you. I
Right.
mean, we're messed up too, but people who don't go after others to bully them and try to make them ruin their lives and the lives of their children just because they no longer want to be with you are a whole different ballgame of screwed up, in my humble opinion.
Right.
So just, don't give in to that next time.
Right.
I know it's easier said than done. I've been there, but
Well, I'm glad that you're both at a place, especially now, where your confidence is back and you have that understanding now where, when you're in that relationship or even when you first get out of it, it is hard to recognize it is them and not me. Because you still do have those fleeting thoughts, like, is what they said true? If it isn't true, why did I stick around so long? And you think about all that, but it definitely sounds like you guys have that good understanding now, and you're at a place where you are fully understanding to the situation you went through and how you aren't to blame for that. So I do praise you on how far you guys have both come.
Thank you.
And I think both of you,
Thank you.
I mean, just continue striving and working towards your goals, because I think you're aware of how working towards your goals are going to benefit you in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it just was a major process.
they have a lot of stuff on NPD.
Huh?
Yeah. They have a lot of stuff on NPD in the research library. There are a few books. Yeah. Because, for me, I don't know, obviously, much about you, but I know what it's like when they employ their techniques. And I've spoken to so many other people who have gotten away from their narcissistic personality disorder during bully. They really do have things that read some of the research, because it helped me compartmentalize a lot of experiences and things that he did or that I did as an effect of what he was doing as a result of being pushed, having my buttons pushed and that kind of stuff. And it's really cool because you can objectively see how this person in your life was just a lot of very wicked smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
And it helps you put things, or help me put things in perspective. If it helps you, Holly, it might help.
I enjoy actually reading stuff like that, and I'm glad you pointed it out, because like one of the biggest struggles that they of course prey on as well is that they literally push you, like you're trying to find resolution, but they sit there and they're driving for the chaos, and
that's what they want.
Point hours and hours, and eventually you get to a place where you just react because you're so done with it and nothing you've tried has worked, and now you just want them away from you. They won't leave you alone, so you're going to push their buttons back to make them leave you alone. And then you feel to yourself, I must be a crazy person, I must be a bad person, because I self-evaluate and I know that my behavior wasn't exactly correct. And then I start to feel guilty because I know that I wasn't perfect either.
Are you an empath? Are you like one of those empath people? Empathetics?
I've heard that. People have told me that basically, but I don't know.
Because, are you like one of those, like, narcissists are drawn to empaths because they have a tendency not to feel emotions, they manufacture them. And so a lot of narcissists are drawn to people who are super sensitive, who really have compassion for others, who feel things deeply, who intuit communication, who have just feelings about this situation. Narcissists glom on to empaths because it's everything they don't have because of their disorder. And so if you're one of those people who's easily doubting yourself because you consider other people's feelings and what you might have done to hurt them inadvertently, you might be a perfect target for somebody like your ex.
Yeah, that's kind of what in some of the support groups, that's what they were kind of saying too, is because I would explain like how I am is especially in a relationship, it's, you know, I would see that his facial expression changed, or his demeanor, or even some of his words. And I would, hey, it looks like you're, you know, upset. It looks like you're irritated. You know, do you want to talk about it? Like, you know, and I did that with a lot of the relationship, because I genuinely want you to feel better. So let's process it so you can,
Right.
you know? And so like, I kind of see like what they're saying as far as the empath thing. And when the other part of it is that whole, you tend to feel other people's emotions with them. And that's been a lifelong struggle of mine, like learning how to separate my emotions from theirs, and, you know, not allowing their emotions to affect my emotional state.
Well,
And
fortunately, having that empathy will help you in your career field, because that is a trait that is very common among counselors. But
right,
like you had said, it does make you a weak target, and ends up um, putting you in a situation that is detrimental to your overall well-being. Um, and it kind of relates into the next topic, and I'm not trying to invalidate what you guys are talking about at all. We're just actually getting towards the end of our group, which I can't
oh, right.
no, I've appreciated hearing everything you guys have been talking about. Um, I I relate to a lot of it on this group where I'm the facilitator. I'm at a point where I'm like, I probably shouldn't disclose too much. Um, but I do appreciate hearing your guys' sides and your stories. But being in those relationships, like you had said, it is draining, and it takes it all away from you, and it's hard to focus on anything else besides making that person happy, or worrying about what can I do to change this person's mindset, or change this person's behavior, or change this person's
Or the
attitude.
reaction.
Yeah, or their reaction, but not how it is affecting you specifically.
Yeah.
Because you're taking that time to focus on someone else rather than yourself. So going along with what we've been discussing the whole time. Um, did you lose us, Lisa?
I know, I was like, are you stuck?
You're good. Oh, wait.
No, I'm sorry. It's storming down here. I was frozen and then I went away and then it came back. Are you guys there? I can see you moving.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay.
How annoying. Sorry.
No, you're fine. But just focusing on that self-care, and part of that self-care is planning a schedule out to have time to, you know, kind of have everything spaced out so that you're not rushing and causing yourself more stress. Um, understanding your coping skills, understanding what specific coping skills are going to work for you. It is individualized, and they are objective, because like I said, what works for me might not work for you, or it might work great. It's also important is just because you know what your coping skills are, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're using them. So actually understanding that you need to actually use them to benefit yourself. Another thing is removing yourself from negative situations. If it is a chronically negative situation that is causing you that much harm or that much damage, it is okay to walk away and understand that you need to make yourself a priority, and you need to do what's best for yourself, because you can't be in a position to be there for others or help others if you're unable to take care of yourself. And
Right.
another thing that is important about self-care is asking for help when you need it.
Yeah.
That's a really hard thing for me, because I I try to put off this persona that I have everything under control, and I'm good, and I don't need anybody else's help. I'm independent and I can do it on my own.
Yeah.
Until I reach a breaking point, and then it's like I want to just shut the world out and go away, and I don't want to talk to anybody, and it puts me at a place where I don't want to be. Whereas if I would have taken time and said, hey, I'm feeling a little stressed out, or I'm feeling like I can't take on this burden right now, do you mind helping me out? People, especially your support people, most likely they're going to be willing to help, especially if you're not the kind of person who always asks for it. So just kind of swallowing your pride and remaining humble, and understanding that asking for that help is okay, and it's something that is going to benefit you.
The other aspect, like, it's I struggled to ask for help all my life anyway, because I was always the independent child, the one that everybody looked to help solve their problems. So I kind of was always naturally just in those, you know, in the you got everything handled shoes. But after being married to my ex, my ability to ask for help was severely damaged, because it wasn't a matter of pride, it was a matter of extreme fear.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I allowed him to be my knight in shining armor, which led to this terrible relationship. I don't ever want to do it again. I know what I'll do. I just won't ask for help ever again. Problem solved. Very black and white thinking, but it's fear driven, and it took a long time for the anxiety and the fear to wear off. Like, you know, not everybody's him, and not everything's going to go like that. And you can place proper boundaries, like in the gray area, where, you know, you can still ask for help, and even if it goes negatively, you're going to be okay because you have boundaries for that, you know, like, so it's like you have to understand, like, what is driving your desire to not want to ask for help. Is it pride? Is it fear? Is it, you know, or is it you're just being the codependent enabler who wants to be there for everybody else, and you don't even think about yourself, you know, like, there's many, sorry, I didn't mean to,
No, you're fine.
What?
No.
No.
That's absolutely right. And you know, even with you talking about that, like, you kept coming back to, I let him be my knight in shining armor. I did this. But at what point is it like, but this is what he did, you know? And
Yeah.
that's a him thing. So at the end of the day, yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, and I liked how you said that at the end, is understanding not everyone is him.
right.
Easier said than done. Definitely takes time to get there. But like I said, at the end of the day, you got away from that. So you took, that's one of the hardest steps in itself, is making that initial getaway. And you did
Right.
that. And once you get on that, it's kind of like downhill, you know, let me reprocess the entire last however many years of my life. And now you have that newfound confidence and that ambition and that drive to be independent and do these things on your own. And it seems to be working well for you. So definitely be proud of yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that one's still a work in progress for me.
And it will be, but hey, it's at least it's working and it's in progress, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I could be back at, like, you know, square one, where I was just like, no, I'm going to kick my own butt just to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we wrap up, I know that we took that break. So before we do like just a closing conversation, there is a quick video that I kind of want to share that I found today. It's like 5 minutes long.
Okay.
Let me do this. Okay, I think this is how it works. Can you guys see my computer screen?
It says
I
you
see
started
you
screen
started-
sharing. Is it doggy?
Oh, there we go.
You see my dog?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's my self-care. That's my baby.
Oh,
So cute.
All right. So I'm gonna get this video playing, and then we'll listen.
Ending ambitious schedule, then it's possible you've experienced feelings of burnout, especially if you're watching a video called How to Deal with Student Burnout. But what exactly is burnout? Yes, it's a series of near-perfect arcade racing games that sucked up large amounts of my time as a teenager, but it's also a debilitating state you don't want to find yourself in. If you're looking for a definition, David Ballard of the American Psychological Association defined job burnout as an extended period of time where someone experiences exhaustion and a lack of interest in things, resulting in a decline in their job performance. Replace job with student, and that definition doesn't lose its accuracy. But here's a more practical definition. Everything makes you tired, you don't care about anything, and everything sucks. Burnout is characterized by near constant exhaustion, a lack of motivation in everything, frustration, cynicism, and a lot of other different symptoms. It's something that can happen when you're dealing with large amounts of stress for a long period of time, which is something that's sadly all too common for students. Here's the kicker though, burnout is a state of being that takes a while to get to. It doesn't happen overnight. And the good thing about this is that you can recognize the signs that are indicative of burnout and take steps to prevent actual burnout before it actually happens. The first step in being able to prevent burnout is to figure out what exactly causes it. Now, a 2006 study at the University of Southern Maine surveyed 354 students students to figure out what the cause of student burnout is. A small percentage reported mental or physical issues to be a cause, and a few others reported that problems with professors were causing their burnout. About 13% felt that it was caused by a lack of personal motivation, either a lack of interest in their major or, as they describe in the paper, an overactive social life. A full quarter of the students surveyed reported outside issues to be the main cause, either family or financial issues or time management problems, mainly caused by things like part-time jobs. However, by far the largest cause reported was assignment overload. A full 49% of the students who actually reported feelings of burnout cited an overbearing, overtaxing course load as the main cause of the problem. So now that we know some of the common causes of student burnout, we can actually tackle the issue of preventing it or fixing it if you're already feeling it. Now, the most important thing to note here is that it's essential to recognize the early signs of burnout if you can and prevent actual burnout before it happens. You're going to be much better equipped to tackle these problems if you're not hampered by constant exhaustion or the depressive state that burnout brings. So if you feel like you're on the road to burnout or you're experiencing some of the symptoms I mentioned before, take that seriously and take steps to prevent what they lead to. That being said, even if you feel like you're past that point and you're completely burnt out right now, hopefully some of these tips that I'm going to round out the video with can help you out. My first and foremost tip is learn from that 49%. Don't bite off more than you can chew with your course load. A more general way you could put this is think very carefully before committing yourself to overstretching for long periods of time. Be willing to challenge yourself, but realize that you do have limitations, just like the rest of us. And if you go beyond those limitations for too long, there are consequences. Now, if you've had a look at my free book on earning better grades, you'll realize this is a rewording of the very first tip in the first chapter of the book, which is don't overload the system. And speaking of the system, my second tip is to make sure that your system, your brain, and by extension your body, are in working order. A lack of sleep, good nutrition, or exercise can put you in a non-optimal state. And when you're in a state like that, you're less able to deal with the challenges of your schedule and also things that can cause burnout. A third tip is to make sure that you're organized. I found in my life that if I feel unorganized, if my task management systems are full of tasks that I don't need to do anymore and everything just seems messy, it causes a lot of undue stress, which can lead to feelings of burnout. So if you're feeling like this, maybe take a day or a weekend to clear out your task management systems, get all that entropy out of there, clean your room, and make sure that going forward you feel like your life is organized. Another tip, and I think this is a really important one, is to make sure you're taking breaks. Get away from your school or work life on a regular basis and give yourself some time to relax. Now, as I've talked about in a previous video, when you're taking breaks, you want to make sure you're having high density fun. Don't just go on Reddit or Facebook and give yourself like 10 minutes away from your work. Actually schedule some time to completely separate yourself from your work life and find something else you enjoy. You also want to make sure that your work or school can't seep into that break time, that it's sacred. As an entrepreneur, I found that in particular, my email is something that can seep into my break time. So I make sure my phone has no notifications on it and I make sure I only check email at certain times of the day. That way my breaks are actually relaxing. Now, small breaks should be a regular occurrence in your schedule. There should be little ones each day, and then you should give yourself some time each week to really unwind. However, sometimes that alone isn't enough, and you might need a longer break. Part of the reason I took my 3-week vacation to Japan is because I was starting to feel some of the early signs of burnout. Making a video and 4 different podcast episodes each week was really starting to be taxing, and I just needed some time to unwind and not have to work. Now that I've had that break, my mind is reset, I'm energized again, and I'm ready to jump back into making videos and podcasts. Now, related to taking breaks, I find that it's useful to have a hobby or a pursuit where you can feel a sense of progress when you do it. For me, at least, I find that taking breaks that only consist of consumption of media like movies or video games, which is honestly what a lot of people do, is not enough. So instead, I think it's good to take at least some of those break times to do something that has some progression to it. My next and final tip is to simply ask for help. You don't have to do this alone, and if you're in college, there's probably somebody on your campus whose job it is to help you deal with stress-related issues. Even if there isn't, or maybe you don't want to, talking to friends or family about what's causing your stress can really help you relieve it. So that's it for this video. Hopefully these tips will help you deal with some of the feelings of burnout that you may be feeling, and we will be dealing with more stress-related topics in the future on this channel. In the meantime, if you've got other tips for dealing with burnout that I didn't mention in this video, feel free to leave them down in the comments, and I will see you.
All right. So I think that what he talked about kind of wrapped up almost everything we said. Unfortunately, I don't have the finances or the time to ever take a 3-week trip to Japan. But I think it was important how he said, even taking a little bit of time for yourself frequently is what's going to benefit you. So all in all, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. I just want to finish. I know that we have talked about a lot of stuff today. So I just want to ask you both, how are you feeling right now?
I feel like this was a very rewarding experience. I feel a real bond with Holly, just because, you know, I think we've been through a bunch of probably similar things, and I feel really encouraged that you were leading this group and facilitating, because you're obviously very skilled at this. So I want to thank you for taking this first session and making it happen.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I'm glad that you took the first one, because like I certainly didn't want to be the first, you know, and you did a really great job.
Yeah.
But you know, like, because for us, like for me, the conversations were, you know, they're not just connecting, they're not just getting to know you guys better and whatnot. It's that, you know, like again, like there's relatable material there too, like because you guys like had similar experiences and stuff, and at the same time, it, you know, I'm leaving the conversation feeling, you know, more encouraged about, you know, my future, not, you know, like those nagging feelings that I've had for a long time that I'm working on, you know, they feel a little bit better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, or at the end of the day, just knowing that you're not alone in how you're feeling.
Exactly.
And yeah, I thank you for telling me I did a great job, because I was very, very, very nervous.
You're
I
awesome.
still, I hope I did a great job, but I guess that is to be determined. But I appreciate it, because I just kind of went for it, and I had no idea what was going to happen. I was very nervous about the 2 hours, but we've actually hit it. So what I am going to do now is go ahead and log off and submit our video, and I look forward to next week to being a participant. I'm very excited to be a participant. So I will.
That's what I was gonna. Did we get figured out like what we have to turn in and what we don't? Because that was still unclear on.
Yeah. So I turn in the group session submission form. I'm the only one who turns that in this week, because I'm the facilitator. But then we each do the peer review / self-review and reflection.
Gotcha.
All right.
Okay, and that's what we turn in.
Yeah, if you get confused on that, just text me and I'll remind you. So
Okay.
You guys have a great night. It's about my bedtime, so I'll see you next week.
Okay, everybody have a great week. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.